What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. Day 6 of the Pittsburgh Steelers training camp just ended, day 2 with pads on. This week started pad week, so full contact, pads in practice. We're seeing a lot of what the Steelers are going to bring to the table. We're seeing who's getting first team reps, who's getting more opportunities, who's starting to shine with contact, what kind of plays and who they're using and kind of stuff like that. So I just wanted to do a real quick video on kind of who's standing out, who's making noise, who's been quiet, who's injured, who's playing, who's not. A real quick rundown. And a lot of this is mostly offense-based. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense has looked a lot better than we expected. We didn't know what to think with, obviously being a wide receiver 2 issue. Aside from Pickens, there's no proven stars on the team, so we're seeing a lot of, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, especially Roman Wilson. So just kind of seeing what the offense can do, and they've been really surprising us so far. Everyone has looked really good on offense. The offense has shined a lot more overall than the defense has. First things first, the big elephant in the room, Russell Wilson has not really had a full practice at all. He just started doing a couple throws yesterday, got a few quick reps today, but really in both days, he's just been doing a lot of handoffs. He's not been taking any contact. The only plays he's been in there for have been handoffs. He's done a little bit of rolling out and stuff, just drills. He's done a couple throwing drills where his footwork looks decent, his arm looks decent. He's a little bit hobbled, a little bit slow. He's not in full pads. He's not taking contact. But he said that this is nothing major and that if this was a game tomorrow, he'd be out there playing. I believe him. I think the fact that he's out there throwing and moving around a little bit shows that it's not super serious. I think he's just an older guy and he's a veteran. He doesn't really have to do these drills as much. So I think when it comes down to the regular season or even the preseason, we're going to see Russell Wilson out there throwing. He just doesn't have to be super involved in camp. So it was a little alarming that he wasn't out there the first week of preseason like everyone else, of camp like everyone else was, and like starting quarterbacks usually are, but I wouldn't be too worried about it so far. With that being said, Justin Fields has really come to play these last 2 days. I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen and heard from Justin Fields. I have a few friends who are reporters. I've watched a lot of the camp highlights and stuff, watched a lot of the videos. Haven't been able to go in person. I have a lot going on right now, but was able to watch a lot of the videos, read a lot of the transcripts, stuff like that. Looks like Justin Fields' his last couple of days have been very, very solid. He still brings you what Fields usually brings you, both on the positive and the negative side. He's going to be a guy that's got a cannon for an arm. He's going to be a guy that occasionally can really sling the ball accurately. He's going to be a guy that can be electrifying, both with his arm and his legs. He's been doing a lot of read options, taking off down the sidelines, making some good reads, making quick reads to run down the field, and making explosive runs that are getting a lot of positive yardage. That said, he also has some trouble with accuracy, and he also has a lot of trouble with diagnosing kind of routes and who to throw to and make decisions. That's been his biggest weak spot, and so far, not as much as before, but still making some bad decisions out there. That being said, he's been improving a lot in camp. From the start of camp to now, we've seen him get better and better. He started with more of the bad Justin Fields and has been finishing up here the more he plays with the good Justin Fields. So the blessing in disguise to this Russell Wilson injury is that Justin Fields been getting all the first team reps, and we're getting to see what he can do and how he can learn and grow as a player. I've seen more growth from him so far just in practice so far with the Steelers than I have in his time with the Bears, and that says a lot. If for some reason Russell Wilson can't go, we'd feel comfortable now with enough first team reps that Justin Fields could go. He's been a highlight so far in camp. Roman Wilson, this is a big topic here because he's been one of the standouts. As far as wide receiver, he's been doing his thing out there. Started slow first day, even part of the second day. Didn't do too much. Didn't look like he was picking up too much, not getting too many plays or anything. Not doing a ton, but from day 3 on, and especially up to yesterday, day 5, he really started showing out. He was sitting down in zones in the middle of the field. He was finding the zones and gaps in coverage. He was making a lot of really quick moves with his feet, ins and outs, running to the middle, running to the sidelines, making a lot of good secure catches. He seemed like he was really standing out as a route runner and getting off the ball quickly in his break and just being really quick and fast. And I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Roman Wilson from day 3, 4, and 5, and then he got hurt. He went off, got carted off the sidelines on a tackle with a high ankle sprain. It's come up to an ankle sprain injury. So thankfully it's not going to be anything major, but it is week to week, which means that he's looking to get back for the first game of the regular season. That hurts us because obviously we don't have the best receiving core in the league. We're still kind of unsure as to what Calvin Austin in his second full year in this new system. New guys that have come on like Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, we're unsure of what they can do in this system with this team. And George Pickens is the only guy we're sure of as being a starter, and he's got his issues too. But, we already didn't have a clear wide receiver 2 standing out, and now Roman Wilson starts to break out of the pack and become one of the standouts, and then he gets hurt. So your clear slot receiver is now down with injury as well. Does that mean we're going to trade for somebody or bring somebody else in? I think there's a good chance that happens, and this might be the impetus as to what makes it happen. Roman Wilson, to me, as a playmaker, has been kind of your clear number 2 standout, along with somebody else we'll talk about in a second, but he's been a clear offensive standout and a clear playmaker at a wide receiver spot, and now he's hurt. So we'll see if we bring somebody else in. Also, just for a rookie, you want to get those, the end of camp reps. You want to get preseason reps, and now he's not going to get them. So this is detrimental at a time when he was really clicking and starting to get it. So it sucks that we're not going to see him in preseason fighting for that possible number 2 or 3 spot. That being said, a couple other guys that have played well are the 3 wide receivers out there. George Pickens, he made a nice one-handed catch today, made a really big camp highlight catch on yesterday over JPJ, the one-handed touchdown catch on the 7-for-7 drills. So really nice touchdown for Pickens yesterday. He's been solid. He's still kind of doing what Pickens does. He's doing those kind of running straight down the field and getting those one-on-one catches, those fades, those deep balls. He's made 2 really nice sideline catches so far in camp. He's doing all the good Pickens stuff. What I want to see is more routes. I want to see him diversify his route tree, show us he can do a little more in the middle of the field, can make some guys miss, can get some separation, and do more than just those outstanding sideline toe taps and one-handed catches, because he's proven to us he can do those, and he's still doing those very, very well. He needs to do a little more, but so far so good for George Pickens. Calvin Austin has come along as well. He started off kind of quiet. Sorry, it's very hot in this room and I can't breathe in a hot room. My throat's also sore from this week. But Calvin Austin came along big time, also kind of at the same time Roman Wilson did. And day 2, day 3, day 4, up until the last couple days, he's been one of the clear leading receivers on this team. Russell Wilson says that he loves Calvin Austin and that's his guy. So I really want to see the chemistry that Russell Wilson might have with Calvin Austin. He's played with guys like Tyler Lockett before, and that's kind of garnered comparisons from Russell Wilson, comparing Calvin Austin to Tyler Lockett, and I would love to see that connection. So hopefully Russell Wilson gets back out there soon so we can see what Calvin Austin can really do, but he's started to really make some plays. He's looked good overall. I would also say Van Jefferson's been solid. Nothing spectacular, but made a couple of plays, couple of nice sideline catches. He's probably going to be by default your number 2 receiver, just by the fact that he's another big physical outside guy who can catch deep balls kind of like Pickens can. It makes sense that you put Pickens and Van Jefferson on the outsides and then Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin on the insides. That's probably going to be your number 2 to start the season. He hasn't been, like I said, standing out crazy or anything, but he's made some solid plays and not done a whole lot wrong. The other big standout receiver that I talked about, aside from, I would say Calvin Austin is your 3rd standout receiver so far this preseason. Roman is your 1. Your 2nd standout receiver is tight end Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth has been very solid. Now, he has had a couple of negative plays, too. It's not been all positive. Yesterday, he had a fumble on day 5 of camp, and I think it was day 2, he had a drop touchdown. So he has not made all positive plays, those 2 big negative plays. But everything else besides that, his route running, getting separation for a bigger guy, he's looked good in running routes in the middle of the field. He's been catching some tough passes. He's been catching in traffic. So, yeah, you're taking the bad with the good. He had 2 big negative plays, but I would say 7 or 8 really positive plays out there. Almost kind of doing what I usually talk about Connor Hayward doing. As a tight end who gets separation, looks quick out of his breaks, makes catches in traffic, and shows sure hands. Pat's mostly done that. So Pat's been one of the big stars so far in camp. Offensive line overall has been very interesting. The starting 5 have looked very good, but that starting 5 have been, the 3 superstars, obviously Isaac Seumalo, James Daniels, Broderick Jones, but they've been starting with Dan Moore and Nate Herbig as well. So the rookies have not started for the most part. Zach Frazier not getting a ton of starting time surprised us because we thought he was going to be the clear number one center from day one. The guy that was so good in comparison to what we already have, he was going to buck the trends and be the clear starting center out of the gate. He has not been. And I've been hearing that he's kind of regressing a little bit. Not necessarily playing worse, just not catching anyone's attention and not stepping up to get on the field more. Whereas it's kind of the opposite with Fatanu. Troy Fatanu, he started off on the bench behind Dan Moore. And again, while it makes sense because Pittsburgh doesn't usually start rookies, they always start veteran guys who know the system before they start rookies and make the rookies earn it. The fact that Frazier's gotten on the field less is kind of alarming, especially considering Herbig is the one behind him. Fatanu started off kind of a little slow, and they said he was more developmental as a piece, and that really scares you for a first-round pick to be developmental when you need a guy in that spot. But Dan Moore's played really well. The offensive line and as a starting five have looked very, very good so far in camp. And Fatanu's gotten himself on the field more. These last 2 days with physicality, he's been more and more present. He has started to show that when the pads come on and when he gets physical, that's when he's starting to make his mark now. While we're seeing more Herbig and less Frazier, which scares me, we are seeing a little less Dan Moore and a little more Troy Fatanu, who's gone one-on-one several times and held his own with TJ Watt, very arguably the best outside linebacker in the NFL. In my opinion, he is the best. So to go against him multiple times on multiple days and hold your own and look pretty good against him when it's time to get physical, he's been showing up. So Troy Fatanu is making his mark now toward the end. Frazier, you got to be a little concerned with. Peyton Wilson at linebacker has really been showing a lot too. Just his speed, willing to be physical, willing to get in there. His attitude's been very good. He has been as advertised. He's been the steal of this draft, maybe even more so kind of like Washington was for the last draft. But I think that getting Wilson as late as we did, being the clear best inside linebacker in the draft this year, and getting him for injury concerns, he has looked really, really good. And you got to think the more and more that Holcomb does not come back from injury and before the start of the season, you have to think that Peyton Wilson is genuinely competing with Landon Roberts for your inside linebacker 2 spot, because Roberts is going to be in there against the running teams and the downhill downs, like the 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts goal line. He's going to be your run-stuffing tackle guy. But Peyton Wilson out there with Patrick Queen being 2 fast, diverse pass batters, cover guys, sackers, blitzers, just doing everything. Peyton Wilson is really impressing, as expected. He is one of the most exhilarating guys to watch coming into camp for me. Finally, 2 big names that have stood out at the corner safety spots. Beanie Bishop. He's been talked about. He was the guy that when we drafted him when we signed him as an undrafted free agent, I said this guy was the best corner that went undrafted, and probably was a guy that should have gone 3 or 4 rounds earlier. Could have been a 4th or 5th round pick and wasn't drafted. Fell to us, and I was really impressed by his tape. And then he came out in camp. Again, didn't stand out the first day or two. Without pads, wasn't doing a whole lot. We're like, what are we going to do about the slot corner situation since we're not giving any reps to Cam Sutton because he's suspended for the first 8 games. He's out for half the season. We need someone to come in here and be our new slot guy. And Beanie Bishop has come out with a starting team. We talk about the Steelers not wanting to start rookies ever and always starting veterans. We don't really have anyone to start in that slot spot. They have started undrafted rookie Beanie Bishop every day with the ones, and he has stayed out there with the ones. He has surpassed Anthony Averett and guys like that to be your main slot corner and looked very good doing it. The other big surprise is that Deshaun Elliott, our safety we signed from the Ravens this offseason to be the number 2 safety next to Minkah Fitzpatrick, has been our backup slot guy. When Beanie's come out, he's been the guy that's been the slot guy, and he's looked very good at that slot position. I looked at him as kind of a Terrell Edmonds, a guy who can blitz, a guy who can tackle, a guy who's good in the run game, a guy who's physical and is going to bang around your receivers, but he's not a guy that you're going to look at as a cover guy. That's Minkah's job. I was a bit wrong so far. From what I've seen in camp, he's been covering and even pressing a little bit down in the slot, being down man-to-man. He's playing pretty good ball in that slot spot. So Beanie and Deshaun both surprising us at the slot corner spots, which then, of course, if Deshaun Elliott does play that spot in relief of Beanie Bishop or even starts there and lets Beanie be the backup, once we get into preseason, that allows Minkah Fitzpatrick and DeMonte Casey to be your starting safeties, whereas Minkah can blitz and do the hybrid stuff and run around. Deshaun can be in the box or can be covering in the slot, and KZ can be your cover safety. So now you're back to that 3 safety look we had 2 years ago, and we wanted to have more of last year before injuries. But now all of a sudden you've got a bit of a hybrid. KZ can be your cover safety, and then Minka can be your blitzer and your kind of turnover guy, but you also have Deshaun Elliott who can play in the slot, can blitz, and can cover a little bit better than we expected. So Bishop and Elliott have both shown up and surprised us this preseason. So those are the positives. I'm a little bummed that we haven't seen a little more from a couple other guys. Mark Robinson not doing anything to stand out. He's going to be a special teams guy essentially at this point. Wanted to hear more about Corey Trice and Darius Rush. Those are the 2 corners I've been looking at as your outside or your slot guys that could stand out with a need for corner, and they haven't stood out all that much. Also at receiver, we've not heard a ton from Quez Watkins, and I hoped he'd be a little more effective out there. Maybe now that Roman Wilson's down, maybe he can kind of stand out a little bit. We'll see what happens with some of those guys. But those are the positives and some of the quiet pieces and the injuries that have happened so far in camp. What do you think so far? We're 6 days into camp, 2 days into pads. Who stood out to you, and what do you think of the guys that I've talked about standing out? Tell me in the comments below what you've seen so far and what you want to see going forward as we head about a week and a half away from our first preseason game. Tell me in the comments down below what you think. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these Steeler Deep Dive videos, and I'll see you guys soon with more camp and preseason previews coming up. Go Steelers.